We understand the fact that global angering is a reality in every part of the world, and I think that we need to do something about it. That's the moral to the story that I want to have. So when we've got terms now like recreational rioting, are you kidding me? We haven't got an anger issue. We know you get on any plane, train, automobile, visit any city, travel around the world, travel any corner of the planet, you're going to find angry people, and we're going to have more angry interactions. But being a curious guy and wanting to dive a little bit deeper and wanting to understand what is happening with anger, I needed some definitive proof. Anecdotal stuff wasn't enough for me. And I found it in New Zealand. Not the anger capital of the world, I might add. I read a report that said in the last decade, Lego characters have become more angry. I did my own research on this, and I believe that Lego characters have become 33% more angry in the last 10 years. Now, we all know that Lego comes from Denmark, right? Denmark is the happiest place on the planet. If the happiest place on the planet has got anger issues, then we're in trouble, okay? You don't need any more proof than that. So the governments of the world, there it is, okay? Let's move on. So why are we getting more angry? Again, in my little search and my curious nature, I started to ask people, A, are you getting angrier? And B, why are you getting angrier? And the response universally was kind of interesting. Most people said to me, I'm not getting angrier, everyone else is getting stupider. We may have a little bit of an indication there about exactly what is going wrong in the world when we think about that. But interestingly enough, I think we're getting angrier for a lot of reasons, like we just heard on that wonderful little TED Talk, short TED Talk, but the media tells us to be angry about stuff. And again, what we click on is what keeps generating things. Let's not forget that the media has a very vested interest in keeping us angry, okay? There's lots of reasons. Anger equals money. All right. Another reason is there's far more mediums now to share our anger instantly. We've all got, press of a button. There's 1 billion people. There's 6 billion mobile devices. If someone wants to get angry about something, it's not very hard to find other people to get on the bandwagon. And of course, it's all about whether it's good anger or bad anger, but that's a topic for a little bit later on. I think also we're frustrated. At times it feels like there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that we want to do something about, but perhaps we can't, right or wrong, and we get angry about it. And I think we also live in this state of perpetual stress. And there's no doubt in my mind that there's a relationship between being angry and being stressed out, or being stressed out and being angry, whichever way you kind of look at it. But I think one of the biggest reasons that we're angrier and becoming more angry as the days go by is because there's a lot of fear in the world. We're fearful. Even though statistically everything I've read says it's a much safer planet, we're frightened. And to prove the relationship here, I want to quote someone, one of the greatest scholars of the 20th century, and I've got to get this right. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. From Yoda, out of Star Wars. Now, if you get that quote wrong, I'm going to get death threats from Star Wars fans around the world. They are big anger people. But interestingly enough, the fear, the anger, and the hate triangle is really what it's all about. The more fearful we become, the more angry we become, and the more hatred that we have in the world. So whilst we laugh, fear is the epitome of everything that we're trying to fight against. Now, I also know that there's a lot more fear in the world because we've got all these new phobias that have come out. Phobias, everyone's got a phobia about something. Let me share some of the newest. Pagonophobia, which is a fear of beards. Sorry, mate. Everyone just move away. Move away from the bearded people in the room. We've also got puppophobia, which is a fear of puppets, which is very prevalent in most parliament houses around the world. We've also got hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia, which is a fear of long words. Now, I'd just like to point out, I developed a phobia about saying that at a TEDx talk live, and I've called that phobia hippopotomonstrosesquipedaliophobia X. It's a new one for the books. Nomophobia. We're terrified about losing our mobile phone coverage. Most people statistically are more concerned about losing their mobile phone than their children. Fair enough, too, I think, in most cases, I might add. Barophobia, a fear of gravity. Seriously. And obviously that was showcased in the recent documentary with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. Anatidaephobia. This is the best one of all. A fear of being watched by a duck. We released a duck in the auditorium here earlier. just to see who starts getting twitchy. Okay? And of course the catch-all, which is panophobia, which is a fear of freaking everything. I don't want to take away from those people that have those phobias, but I've got to say, seriously, man, if anyone questions that global angering is a reality, just look at that. And I had so much fun looking into all of those phobias and developed many more that I didn't even know I had. But my history goes back a long way with anger. And I want to tell you a little bit about that. I grew up, I haven't got a birth certificate. I don't actually know where I was born. I don't actually know when I was born. My parents left me when I was a 6-month-old child, and my sister when she was 18 months old. And they disappeared, left us. We don't know why or how, any of that kind of stuff. They left us with an old lady who was 70 years old at the time. Could you imagine a 70-year-old lady? They just left us there and disappeared. 70-year-old lady, Winifred Enid Taylor. And she was a funny old lady. She was a tough old lady. She was born in 1896. Hard to imagine, isn't it, someone being that old? So 70-year-old lady all of a sudden has got these 2 little rodents to look after. And she had a hard life, and I saw a lot in her. She grew up in an era that was difficult. She needed a filling when she was 20, and as was the custom of the time, they just rip all of your teeth out and give you falsies. Imagine that. She had all of the males in her family, her father, her uncles, 6 brothers, all killed in world wars and various battles. 2, maybe 3 husbands, I can never quite remember, killed in various world wars. She had breast cancer as a young woman, and once I saw this sign, so this was probably around 1915, I saw the scar once of where they treated her, and it looked like a great white shark had just come up and bitten a big chunk out of her. But they took out ribs, they took out internal organs, they just took out everything. It was extraordinary. Anyway, we lived a very, very unusual life with this lady. For me, I wasn't allowed to sleep inside. I slept outside on a mattress for all of my earlier life. If we had a dog at any stage, the dog slept inside. And I never really understood that. But she had a deep fear of men and a deep hatred of men that made her angry. In my little world, this stage we were growing up in Perth, and where we lived was a very rough part of Perth. And so I wandered the streets from the youngest age I could possibly remember. Is I just wandered around the streets of Perth, around the hotels, and there were a lot of brothels in that area as well. I didn't know they were brothels, of course. I just kind of liked them because when I went in there, the ladies made a fuss of me and gave me cups of hot chocolate. And I would be hiding away in my various little hidey holes around the suburb, and I would see the drunks coming across from the pub going into the brothels. And I thought for many years they were just going in there to get hot chocolate. And I guess in many respects they obviously were. But my life with this old lady, she was extraordinarily violent, incredibly violent. And my sister and I, we grew up, there were times, many, many times where she would just hold me up and scream and tell me how much she hated me and how evil I was and the anger and the hatred that spewed from her. And she would throw us across the room. She would throw boiling water. She would just come out when I'm on this mattress thing out there and just start attacking me with a lump of wood. And just out of control. And even as a kid, though, I kind of got it that it really wasn't about me. She was just angry. She just had so much in her life that she had to vent it. And of course, what I really noticed with her was over time how she had changed until she died. This twisted and bitter old lady. And that was the end result of what I saw anger. And my point there is that anger consumes absolutely. And it starts with road rage. It starts with being a bit angry and a bit grumpy, but it can slide to the most despicable of places. And I look at that and think that's one of the biggest lessons that we need to learn. So how do we be less angry? I think there's a few ways that we do that. I think we need to take responsibility for our anger. Somewhere along the line, we've outsourced the anger determining mechanism. And a line, "You made me angry," gets used all the time. Another example of my early life, which was extremely unusual, but unfortunately not that uncommon. I was taken away as a state ward at one stage, and I was staying with a lady who had a boy my age, and we were in her apartment. And at some stage in the night, her ex came along, ex-husband or ex-boyfriend, whatever he was, and started bashing on the door. She opened the door, and he came in, and he started to beat this woman. And I was hiding under a couch with my friend, and you could hear the bones breaking on this lady. This man was attacking this woman. And his words were, "Why do you make me so angry?" I remember them vividly. "You made me do this." It was extraordinary. And that's an extreme, but the police came, and then the police did to him what he had done to her. And I remember the irony of that was the policeman saying, "You made us do this," screaming at him. You know, like the same kind of cycle continues. We need to take responsibility for our anger. We've outsourced it. We're lazy with our anger. We get angry because it's easy to get angry. It's harder not to get angry, and I think we need to consider that and think differently. We need to let go of old hurts and replace them with better emotions. So growing up as an orphan, for me, the person who ironically had the biggest impact on me was my mother. I've never met her, yet I had a lot of anger and bitterness towards this woman. How could she leave me? What a cute baby I would have been. But how could she possibly leave a 6-month-old baby and an 18-month-old baby or kid? And I looked at that, and I had a coaching session or a therapy session or whatever you want to call it with a lady once. And it was very, very interesting because she kind of said, well, let's think about what your mother's life was like when she was 17 or 18. She had 2 kids out of wedlock, and to an Italian lad. She was from an Anglo-Saxon family. She'd been cut off from the family. Everyone hated it. She'd left. And there was this old 70-year lady who lived up the road who, for all intensive purposes, looked like Mrs. Doubtfire. Lovely, warm, a granny. And she decided to leave us with this lady. And I kind of thought about that long and hard. And the therapist said to me, maybe it was a great act of love as opposed to an act of just parental neglect or not caring. Whether it is or not actually doesn't matter anymore for me because it changed my view. And I do believe that what she did was an act of love. I do believe that I'm grateful for that because my life has turned out pretty darn good. I met my father when I was 22, and I'm very, very glad that I was not brought up by him. Okay? Interesting kind of thing when we replace those emotions. And one day I hope I get to say to my mother, I love you and thank you for leaving me with that crazy old lady. So, Mum, I assume you're watching this. It's been 50 years. 1-800-I-love-you. Call. You know? But we also need to forgive quickly. When did we become so good at hating? When did we become so good at hanging on to things? It's a problem that we have in the world. And again, it's fueled and it's incensed by communication, by the ability to be instant, by the fact that people can go on social media, say whatever they like, whenever they like. We live in a world where it's very easy to be angry, easy to be a troll, easy to be all of those types of things. But I do believe that we need to forgive a lot quicker. And we need to be stronger with our anger. And what I mean by that is, again, we've got to decide. We've got to grow up and make stronger decisions about what is the right thing to get angry about. Like, you know, there's someone who's just shot a beautiful animal and they're posing on social media. Yeah, let's get angry about that. But what about the day-to-day things that we're getting angry about? What about the things that are really not that important? Well, who makes a decision about what we should get angry about? You should make the decision about what you get angry about. What I'm saying is we should make better decisions about what we get angry about. Let's not just be lazy about the decisions. Because we're tired, we're grumpy. I'm going to yell at my kids. Or I'm going to yell at your kids, or yell at whoever. And we see it all the time. I travel all the time and I see so much anger and grumpiness because people are lazy. We need to be kinder, and for me, kinder is the cure-all for anger. And it's easy to dismiss kindness, but it is the most powerful weapon, I believe, against anger. This is an example here. This little cute dog, this is from the Humans of New York, an incredible site. You should check it out. The little dog's called Engelbert, and his dad's Steve. Steve lives in New York, wanted to go and get a rescue dog from a shelter. And the dog that he wanted was gone. And down the back cage, that was close to being dead, really, was Engelbert. His former owners had kept him outside, so his ears were frostbitten. There were 10 pages of things that were wrong with him. Most people would say, call the vet, put him down. And Steve said, no, this dog's going to come with me. And he's taken him home, fixed him up. Now, Engelbert is in a family with 8 other rescue animals, including a pig, running the rock show. Now, this is an act of kindness. And these are the things that resonate with all of us. Millions and millions of people watch these things. This is humanity, in my view, at its best. This is what changes the world, these simple little acts of kindness that are easy to dismiss as kumbaya, okay? But they are the most powerful things that we can all do. You don't have to go and get a dog tomorrow from the shelter, but it'd be good if you did. But we could all be kinder. We can all change the way that we are, the way that we think, the way that we act. So I want to issue a challenge to everyone. I want to say for the next 33 days, how about we all try to be 33% less angry? But how about every single day we try to be kinder? We be more considered. We don't get embarrassed about doing the little things because we think that it's embarrassing to show kindness. The world resonates, the world will change. And I think if we do that, if we all do that and we all play a part in that, we can reduce global angering and the world will become a better place. We'll put a smile back on the faces of these little guys. and everything will be as it should be. So I'm not just going to ask you to be curious, I'm going to beg you to be curious. And curious enough to change the way that you think about your own anger and also about the way you think about your own kindness. Thank you.